reiterate for those of you that might have come in later, I'm Romy Short. I'm your facilitator for this session for the digital NTOs for the technical focus group. By way of introduction, a little bit of context about me. I'm one of the education advisors. I actually worked on the drafting the T-level outline content for digital, amongst others, and I've had the pleasure of working with the AOC and the Department for Education on the transition programme as well, right from the early advisory days and to drafting this content, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Just want to introduce some key important people around the room. I've got Abby that's going to do a metaphorical wave there. Abby's keeping us all on track with technology and putting us into groups, etc., as we progress throughout the next couple of hours. Richard?
Yes, hello, my name is Richard Patient. I'm a T-level advisor for the AOC, and I support sort of schools and colleges and providers in the sort of southeast and London area.
Thank you, and I'm going to move over to Farha, please.
Hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Farha. I've been working on TLTP for the last 3 years. And just moved to T-levels as well. So again, same as Richard, just supporting providers with planning and implementing T-levels and TLTP.
And can we move into Nick? Do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Nick Clark. I'm kind of based around North London. Most of my providers are in the southeast. I've been with the AOC. This is my 3rd month now. Nice to meet you all.
So I'm delighted to say that there are far too many of you for us to go around the room in this particular introductory session. But when we move to our breakout groups, you'll have a chance to introduce yourselves as well. So let's get on with the session. I promise we won't finish any later than 12 noon. So if we go to what we're going to cover today and move on to the next slide, please. We just covered our welcome and introductions, but just to give you that assurance that what we're going to do today is give you an overview of the T-level transition programme. And there's the brackets, the acronym in brackets there for you. I know that you will have already had some set of slides, and you'll have had access to a recording for the TLTP, but you will get a chance to ask some questions about that later. The bulk of what we want to do today is introduce you to the national technical outcomes. So we'll go through the outcomes themselves, and you can have a chance to familiarise yourselves with those. And importantly, look at teaching and learning activities for how to deliver those. In terms of our expectations, I know that we've already had some issues there with microphones, with videos, and somebody bravely, heroically, is teaching in the background then. So please do make use of the chat, and if I don't manage to keep an eye on what's coming in through the chat, colleagues around the room will be able to do so, and in that way we'll be able to include you in what we're saying. So we are going to have 2 significant breakout sessions. So we've got rooms for group discussion there. And I know it will be difficult for a couple of you, but please do get involved in that. In terms of presentations, I'm only going to talk to a small number of slides there, but I am going to ask you for feedback. So when you go into your breakout groups, the most important thing is to nominate somebody to feedback. In terms of FAQs, what we gather from today, obviously we're going to talk to you about if you've got any questions that you particularly want answering in, but really important, key questions that you think that your colleagues around the country might want to know, we'll gather those and we'll put those into a resource for you as well. Okay, so moving on then to our aims for today, session aims. So as I indicated earlier, this will give an opportunity to provide information on the T-level transition programme, on the revised framework, which came into effect from 2022, so now from September this year, and the role of the national technical outcomes. So we're going to give you some information on that and give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. Importantly, what we want to do is to enable you to explore the NTOs, particularly approaches to teaching and learning. And we're going to include in that formative assessment there. So how to check that that young people are sure of what they're doing, how you can be sure of how they're progressing as they continue through their journey, potentially to T levels, but through transition. And what we want to do is we're aiming to support you to plan for next steps, but also to give you some information as well about the next steps. So I'm going to touch on just a few things in the next slide, the next 3 slides, but that you will have had access to prior to the session. Now, I know that some of you will have been able to attend presentations from colleagues such as Richard, Farhat and Nick. Others might have been able to have this remotely, this information. So what I'm going to do is just to make sure that we're all at the same base level, just pick up on a few things. I'm going to pause after, I think I've just got 3 slides here, pause after each one. And if anybody wants to ask any questions for clarity, you can do. If not, we'll be around in the breakout groups and you can pick up on any issues then. Okay then, so in terms of purpose then for the T-level transition programme, I just want to pick up on a couple of points there. The purpose of the programme is to help students to develop, and then we've got there highlighted, or in my mind I've got highlighted, knowledge, skills and behaviours. So development of a broad range of knowledge, skills and behaviours, particularly to support progression onto their chosen T-level route. So students might have in mind that they want, in our case, to go down the digital route. In other cases, it might be hair and beauty or construction. So this programme is primarily for progression onto T-level route. Now, the principles that underpin that then is, in terms of preparation, see that in its broadest sense, in terms of assessment, in terms of breadth of the route, motivational activities, and that's what we're going to look at in the National Technical Outcomes, but also other activities such as engagement with employers. In terms of the second bullet there, in terms of knowledge, skills and behaviours, now we talk about particularly progression to level 3 study, but also it's around the principle of developing those broader skills in terms of knowledge and behaviours as well. There is a real emphasis then on holistic and integrated approach. So you will see that the NTOs are part of, a very key part of, that motivational part of the T-level transition programme, but holistic approach to be adopted there. And importantly, what we're saying is that students should be clear about what they need to achieve so that they can own their own learning, own their own progression and route into employment. However, the last bullet there is probably the most important. Actually, the transition programme is about helping students, helping young people make the right decision about what to do. And the right decision for each individual student might not be to go on to a T-level programme that they've chosen in the first place. It might be to go on to another one, T-level route. It might be an apprenticeship. It might be to study something else. So we do recognise and have that at the forefront of the T-level principles for T-level transition programme. So I'm going to then move on to what students can expect. So they've been recruited, they're there on day 1 with you from last September, and they can expect 5 key areas. So to develop in 5 key areas, and that's to help them to prepare for their T-level in their chosen route. Now, I'm just going to go through, right, the colours there. So we've got dark blue, right? So I'm going to start first in the donut. circle. English, maths and digital. So they can expect to develop in the skills areas of EMD. Now, whether that's through formal qualification in English and maths, that's up to yourselves there. And lots of providers introduce digital or build on digital in different ways as well. So some colleges will offer digital right throughout the curriculum for everyone, and some will focus in a particular component area, like we've got there, particular area. In terms of skills for successful study, I alluded earlier on the fact that the programme is to introduce students to what to expect at T level. Now that might be around taking examinations, where perhaps they might have less confidence. So that red bit might be introducing metacognition, learning to learn. It might be about revision strategies. So that's what they can expect partially as well. Now, knowledge for the skills for the workplace. I'm on to blue now at the bottom there. This is to give students an opportunity to experience the workplace. And notice it's not work experience, but to have some sort of experience of the workplace, which is a line of sight to the industry placement, but also to eventually workplace behaviours, what's expected in the workplace. I'm going to leave our fluorescent green till later, because that's the motivational element that students find also important, and that's where the NTOs sit. Now, in terms of positive attitude and behaviours, when we get to look at the NTOs in more detail and you get a chance to talk about them, you'll see that there are behaviours that are flagged, that are indicated as part of the content there. So, and this might be about resilience, it might be about developing some sort of well-being, independent working, being responsible. So those sort of behaviours. Now, I just want to pick up that bottom left bullet on this slide here, because these are the core KSBs. They can be added to, so they can be augmented by yourselves to reflect either individual students' needs or local employers' needs. Now, the corollary of this is, if we move on to the next slide, so we've had what students can expect. And now I'm going to move into what providers are expected to study. Now, you'll see yourselves in there at the bottom circle there, technical knowledge and skills, but the students that you get on your transition programme will have holistic delivery there of those 6 components. So 6 components in bold type there. Very deliberately, this is represented as a Venn diagram to reflect that holistic delivery. And you'll see here running through the diagnostics there, monitoring and guidance. So that should run right through the programme, which is why it's to one side of the main rugby ball there. And at the beginning, the middle and the end, and then pastoral support as well, running right through the programme. And you'll recognise the terminology from the previous slide, from what students can expect in terms of the English, maths and digital, the experience of the workplace, and their personal development and enrichment. So, students have different starting points. And again, I'm going to pick up on that bottom left-hand bullet like I did last time, but just extend this a little bit, because as providers, you have the discretion to decide how you weight each component yourselves. Now, that might not necessarily be your judgment. It might be senior management judgment or whole college policy. But for example, I know that some of you might want to lead with English and maths at the forefront of curriculum and put more emphasis and more weighting on that. But just to bear in mind, and I'm sure that those of you that have spoken to your local AOC colleagues round the table, round the room, will know that the programme itself is 540 GLH, and the guidance is that the NTOs should not be more than half of that. Okay, so, but the NTO set themselves in terms of GLH, I'll touch on later. So basically, I think what is really attractive and what the feedback that's that has been given throughout the development of the T-level transition programme has been that the flexibility that you have to develop the focus of each of those components according to students' needs, but according to local needs. Whistle stop tour there. I'm going to pause. Is there anything that anybody wanted to pick up on before we move into our main bulk of discussing NTOs? So that's your context. And we're going in to have a look at the national technical outcomes themselves. You can weave it into the breakout rooms, it's fine. That's brilliant then, Farhat and Nick and Richard, because usually we had lots of questions. So that's great. You've done a brilliant job in updating providers beforehand. So here we're going to go into session 1 before we move into our breakout room. So if we then go into, let's have a quick look at the technical knowledge and skills section. So here's, I keep calling it R, but yeah, so our as in digital. So this is our little rugby ball, our circle then. So in terms of this particular component, the aim is to, for young children, young adults, to gain a broad introduction to the T-level route, and you'll see that route emboldened there, and you'll see reflected in the NTOs the we've got design, production and development, and you'll see representation of the data, the business digital business TQ, and also the support and services TQ as well. So broad introduction right across the route there to provide maximum choice really for the students for when they choose their T-level. So we know that it's a strong motivator, and these are going to be youngsters that are they wanted to go on a T-level, they perhaps have just missed that opportunity. So this is to give them that motivation. And as I said earlier, second bullet there, it's not expected to be the largest part of the programme, but probably you're going to be the ones that are the most motivational and at the forefront of developing those other essential knowledge and skills and behaviours that these youngsters will need to make them successful there. Now, the reason why we've got NTOs, and this is right across the whole of the TLTP provision within the framework, is to ensure that there's some consistency across providers. And that's why the set of NTOs has been pitched at the equivalent of something, a small qualification. So something around, imagine 120, 150 GLH as a minimum, just for what we're going to have a look at in front of us. They also provide opportunity for adding additional technical content. And I know that, I don't know if we've got Hales Owen scrolling in, but when we met quite recently, I think it was March this year, I know that you were supplementing with a lot of cyber security there. So it does give you the opportunity of, yes, there's something in the NTOs to give that consistency, but also there is the opportunity for you to add content, and then we've got in bold there to support breadth and depth. That's where it's appropriate for students, where they're perhaps progressing at a faster level than others, but also where you might have local needs. And there's a reference for you. You might have read that already, but just if you want to have a look at that afterwards there, you've got the reference, and you'll get the slides afterwards. So if we move on to then the concept of the NTOs. So we've got here the National Technical Outcomes, similar to T-levels, are about performance outcomes. Yeah, so it's all around performance. And then we've got in brackets and learning, because learning to get to the performance there. You'll see that the layout on the NTOs is you've got technical knowledge identified there, and alongside technical and employability skills. And when we get a chance to look at them, you'll be able to see that there isn't a direct read across, although there is opportunity with that technical knowledge for employability skills to be developed and to be honed. You'll have behaviours, you'll see behaviours which we don't see in the T level, but because of the holistic delivery of the TLTP, very essential there, and also about raising confidence as well, to adopt and to learn about how to display those behaviours. In the NTOs, you'll see a reference to English, Maths and Maths Level 2 content. Now, we've headed those communication and numeracy skills. That is naturally occurring. There isn't an expectation that you should be teaching, unless your college teaches in that particular way, sort of embeds English and Maths. There isn't the expectation that you'll be explicitly teaching the English and Maths. We've got inclusion of digital skills because also important in life and employment, but as well as those of you that are familiar with the T levels that are teaching on them, you'll see that they are running through the T levels as well. In respect of digital, the development process was to use Key Stage 3 as a benchmark, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4. Now we've got computer science in the national curriculum, and you'll know to what extent that youngsters arrive with various degrees of competence of those computer science digital skills. The NTOs are benchmarked against level 2 provision, so current level 2 qualifications. There was that line of sight with outline content as well, so based on the T levels and how to provide a foundation for students to move on to those T levels, but also employers and providers were involved, and some of you, either yourselves or colleagues, might have been involved in reviewing the NTO outcomes, but certainly employers were involved as well. The root panels at the Institute were involved, the department, and there was a wider consultation as well. So I suppose what I'm saying here is they weren't dreamed up in isolation. And as a result of drafting, involvement, reviewing, we have ended up with, and you'll notice the performance outcomes for digital, the 3 there. If we move on to the next slide. So our 3 outcomes. Now we've got one that is more focused on data analysis. We've got our cybersecurity and producing digital solutions. Very deliberately they're framed with the verb, the active verb there. The explore, data analysis, design and produce. So that's our outcome. Now I'm just going to, hopefully everybody has got a copy, either online or printed out in front of them, or you're working on split screen, so you've got access to the 3 NTOs. I think the easiest way for me to ask if anybody hasn't got those, because what we can do is, or I can do, is put you the link in the chat if you haven't got them. Has anybody not got them? Great, because you'll need access.
I haven't got it to hand.
Yeah, okay. Okay, right. So as we go into, let me see if I can, give me 2 ticks. And then if I get this in the chat, then Yeah, you might not have known that I was going to go into breakout groups to use those, but scroll down, you'll see that might be direct to, yeah, it does say direct to digital there. Okay, so let's move on then to, have we got enough for three groups? I'm going to set you up into a task then in groups. If we've got enough for 3, we'll split into 3 and that will be perfect. You can do one each, but if not, we really want to have a rich discussion. So we'll go into 2 groups, but let me set this up first. Okay, 2 groups. Thanks, Abby. So this is the discussion topic. So how will you evidence the outcomes that have been met? So I'll just give a bit of context there. So what would you need to show to an external stakeholders how students have achieved the outcomes? So what evidence are you going to use? It might be a visitor, an employer, it might be internal quality assurance team, it might be external quality assurance team. But essentially, how are you going to measure against the outcome that I'm going to give you now? So in terms of, do include challenges as well, because that's what we need to know. So remember, I said earlier that we'll hop into groups with you. We'll take notes of the discussions, any questions, answers that will inform FAQs, we'll do that. So in typical form then, I think group 1, can you have the focus of your discussion as NTO 1? So basically we're saying explore data analysis. Yeah, it's group 2. Can you have, I'm trying to think of one that everybody might be doing. I'm going to give you outcome 3 for group 2. That spans right across all the 3 TQs. If you get time, please can you go into the outcome 2, that's for both groups, that's design a cybersecurity resilience plan. So that's our cybersecurity, which I know now is an occupational specialism. So 1's doing 1, 2 is doing 3, and if either of you have got time, we're going to move on to NTO 2. Hopefully, right, let's have a look how we're going for timing. Probably 10 minutes fast paced. So coming back at 1:45, maybe a little bit of slack there because we want to transition on to something else at 11. So you've got 10 minutes, quarter of an hour in your group. Abby, I know you'll want to set the time, but if you bring us back at 1:45, that would be great. So evidencing the outcomes. Yeah, how will you evidence the outcomes that's been met? Please do appoint a spokesperson, or I mean, it might be see how it goes in the room, whether myself or Farhat or Nick or Richard speak back. I think we've got everybody back. Yeah. So I'm going to ask group 1 if they've got some feedback for, yeah, that's everyone. Thanks, Abby. So group 1, I don't know who's speaking for group 1, but if you've got feedback around how you will evidence the outcomes that have been met. So basically, whether it's external stakeholder, quality assurance, anybody that might ask you, how will you evidence that the outcomes have been met? Particular focus on PO1 as your starting point.
So we've had a little discussion on the outcome 1, and unfortunately we only had one provider who is delivering or looking to deliver the digital. So they said what they'd be doing, they'd be front loading it with the level 2 qualification, so using the assignment based structure. And then to cover all the NTOs, they will be doing an in-house exam type assessment, one to prepare students for the exams and for the T-level exams. So yeah, that's what they were saying.
Interestingly, I'm going to hand over to Nick in a minute, but interestingly, we had representation for level 2 digital delivery, but similarly, Farhat, not as many, not everybody was actually delivering the T-level transition program. Aimed to deliver the T-level transition program, but didn't get the number of students to support, you know, a viable group. Nick, are you with us? Am I going to hand over to you?
Yeah. So for NTO3 from Donna, we had students studying the BTEC level 2 with us, given a brief in which they design a project that aligns with the skills and behaviors that are required in T levels, as well as softer skills. I think she said smart targets and review project work, which must be accredited. And I think we had from I think this was from Richard, replace the level 2 with a TLTP, linking with employers to get their feedback into the skills that are going to be assessed. So kind of getting basically an outline of the skills and behaviors that employers think should be included in such an assessment. And then using employer feedback to outline competencies that need to be delivered. So really 2 things there really are getting the employer involvement in the learning outcomes for NTO3. And we touched slightly on NTO2 with Dave telling us about students who did an introductory HE module on cybersecurity and cyber countermeasures. So the students found that very motivating to be doing something that was kind of introductory HE level. I think that's about it, Roman.
Yeah, so what I found interesting was in that obviously level 2 provision there, digital provision there, but you were using, quite understandably, programs already or qualifications already in existence there, and oh, we've got somebody else, great. Using programs already in existence. Now, I don't know whether anybody has gone through, and I suppose it's a bit difficult if you're not teaching TLTP or if those groups didn't run because of viability. If anybody went through and did any sort of like detailed mapping to say, oh, well, this will deliver this NTO, or we know that we're secure that we're covering everything because of X. Donna, with your BTEC level 2, I know you're in the chat, but it would be great if you could just, sort of like, if you have got or did look at the NTOs, if you could just put into what extent you did any mapping or if you sort of like cross-referenced any of them. Dave, I know you said that your access to HE, that you said that mapped really well into the DSS TQ.
Yeah, it helped work towards that and giving the students some skills towards the DSS T-level program. So yeah, they work well.
And then we'd got Richard that's thinking of delivery. This was in group 2 for next year. Oh, Dave, I didn't say that yours was an Open University one either, did I? I ought to have said that actually. So before we move to a break, oh, I've got Louise in as well. Before we move to a break, I was just going to ask if there were any questions here. Louise, we picked modules that aligned from Vox Studies qualification, but broadened it to cover. Louise, fine, Sunita, just join in. We're just towards the end of activity 1, so it's a great time, and we're moving to a break. Louise, I don't know if you've got microphone. Do you want to say something about the way that you cross-referenced?
Yeah, so we broadened it out to think a little bit about a bit of business context and things like that as well, because we just wanted to actually sort of make sure that students are aware that the T-level was broader than just really technical stuff. So we've done a little bit around sort of business context and communication and those kinds of things as well, just so that we're giving them a really broad skill set for the T-level.
Yeah, that's that's really important, and that's an example of using your. How many GLH are you given?
So we run it as a full study program, and we are doing basically an extended certificate. So that's about 270, I think, plus the NTOs. Yeah, so it was just really to give people an idea of how you can complement the NTOs, really, and not necessarily in. I mean, like some will find. So I was talking to some engineers at Hollow. And and they supplemented theirs with automotive stuff, so it's pure technical stuff. But you broaden that to even though it might have been in your space, to give that broader application, I suppose, really, and understanding of the NTOs. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, thanks, Donna. Just giving everybody a chance to read what Donna said about the cross-referencing of the BTEC level 2. Oh, right. Can you see that there, that how in terms of evidencing, I don't know if you kept those mapping or documents or ways of working, or, you know, sort of even if it was minutes of the meetings there, Donna, for your discussion around DSS and DPD. Now, particularly those units for DSS and DPD, Donna, I don't know if that's because that's what you're anticipating offering at T level, those two particular TQs. Yeah. Okay, so that maps into, so Donna's saying yes, and that maps into or supports that foundation and progression there to particular T levels. Right, okay, so any questions? If we just move out of the slide a moment, I'm just going to ask any questions before. Yeah. Now, if we can just stop, just come out of screen share for the moment. That's great, just to give people a chance to look at each other. Any questions there? You've got another note from Louise as well in the chat. Project management module. Louise, we've met before, I think. I don't know if that came from the discussion that we had, didn't it, with when we were formulating the NTOs. Yeah, so yeah, we've just made sure that we've done quite a broad mix, really. So we've picked modules that directly align to the NTO, but then just broadened it out. And we felt like project management was going to be quite a key skill as well, because it's obviously quite an intense program T level. So we really kind of sat down and unpicked what skills we felt would complement the NTOs, and what was really needed for the broader T level.
So that one's quite a challenge, that, because you're thinking here level 2, really important, you know, and some people can over interpret that, if that's a word, because you know, sort of, I think we put that under communications in NTO 3 in terms of, you know, sort of ways of working, where, for example, agile. We got any other questions around the room? Just for those that you have just scrolled in, evidencing the outcomes. That was our discussion point. No? Okay, so just to say that what we're going to do now is take a break, come back at 5 minutes past 11. We've got another activity. And we're going to have a different group configuration, bearing in mind that we've not got many people that actually started in 2022 because of numbers, the numbers situation. But we will go into another activity, yeah, and I'll go through the NTOs, and we can have a look at teaching and learning activities. So big push on teaching and learning activities for the next one. Yeah, so grab a cuppa and I'll see you back at 11:05. And you're back with us.
I'm back.
Well, thank goodness, Richard. Yeah, great. Hi, Sunita. Great. Thanks, Dave. Just to note that I wish Mike had said beforehand he's going to join, Mike and his team. I can't remember which college they've registered from, but they came as a department, didn't they? They've said that they're going to join in the creative next week. And I was going to throw down the gauntlet to them around being able to use I suppose it's the programming element, the coding element for going onto gaming, because that's what a lot of those that sort of see themselves between digital and creative are there for. So anyway, he's decided that's what he's going to do. He's going to join in with creative and design next week. So Abby, are you with us? Oh yeah, Abby's in the background. Louise, are you with us? I know sometimes you're in and out of the background. Yeah, Dharmesh, yeah, great, thank you. Dharmesh, are you with us? And David, I know Sunita is. David, are you with us? Howarth, I'm thinking. Dave Howarth. Oh, we've got James as well. Okay. I'm just thinking, Abby, that we might just have to work as one. We'll see in this next session. What I wanted to do then, I'm just going to flex it a little because we've had the max contingent move over to creative. Give you an opportunity to talk about the NTOs themselves. So, for example, Abby, if we just have that one wireframe slide for the moment, just to kick us off, that would be great. So normally, when we go into talk about NTOs in depth, we would look at, I mean, we call it a wireframe, but essentially that's just, you know, sort of the main headlines, really. So in terms of knowledge, this is just for PO2. We've got the topic headlines, for want of a better word there, in planning, need for cyber security. I'll let you read those themselves. So they're the main topic headlines. And then on the other side, we've got skills, some of which are technical skills or build on technical skills there with the following data protection. Some are like the planning, I suppose that's an overarching employability skill, or could be technical as well. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to, Abby, if we can take that off now, and if I can just keep people for a few minutes. Yeah, so you should have your NTOs either to hand or whatever. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to go through them there. So typical layout, is everybody happy with the typical layout? This is the rationale. These are the topics in whichever outcome. These are the behaviours. And these are the skills, naturally occurring skills in English, maths and digital. Got any questions about layout? No, happy with that? Yeah, okay. So have a look at NTO 1, for example. In terms of teaching and learning, our big question is around, oh, Abby, just if you throw our big question up, because this is what we're going to do in turn with each of the NTOs. I'm going to let you talk it through, so I don't think we've got enough people now to, okay, Louise, got you, 11:30. I don't think we've got enough people to go into groups. Can you just throw us our big question up, Abby? Our second one, in groups, what teaching and learning approaches?
Sorry, 2 seconds. It's just been a bit awkward for me.
All right, okay.
I'll get it up in a second.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'll introduce what we're going to do, and then we'll just wait for this the share to segue in. So here, the important bit is teaching and learning approaches that could be used to deliver the content, but also to develop knowledge and skills to meet the outcomes there. So this is what our next activity was in terms of sharing. So it might be, if you haven't had to plan, you've not needed to plan because you've not got your TLP students this year, but anything that you think that you could pinch from what you're delivering at the moment. Yes, Abby's just going to scroll right through. Anything that you could repurpose from what you're delivering at the moment to deliver the NTOs, either the NTO as a whole or by putting a couple or even all three together. And we've not got Donna, so I can't pick her brains, even though it might be in the chat, about her project there. Oh, it looks like that isn't working. Okay, so this is the, I'll just read. We don't need it, Abby. Oh, yeah, there you go. We have got it there. Okay, this is our big question then. Teaching and learning approaches that could be used to develop the knowledge and skills to meet the outcomes. So that's our big questions. And we're going to try and manage it as one from the front, given the fact that I don't think we've got enough to put into groups at the moment. Okay, so out of the slide then. So that first one around data analysis solutions. We can come out of the slide, Abby, if you're not frozen. Thank you. Teaching and learning activities for that one. Any thoughts about what do you do at the moment for teaching data? Richard, I think did you say that you're hoping to do the business, digital business?
Yeah, we do. We're looking to do the we're looking to do the data analysis one as well as the digital support. I think it's the business services T level. So it'd be something that would feed into that. I mean, we have on our level 3 a big data unit. We do the OCR on level 3 and we use the big data for that. So I've taught on that. And what I did, obviously with some students, data analysis, anything businessy when coming into computing is always a difficult sell. But what we did, we had an assignment where we allowed the students to pick a research, much like they would at university. They have a hypothesis and then they go out and then they research some data and then try and prove that question. We got them using Power BI, which they found really interesting because it did pretty charts and graphs and things, but then it was then taking those skills and techniques and then showing them how to look for patterns and then use that information then to prove their hypothesis that they'd set out for their report. So I would probably use something along that lines, try to get them as much active as possible and actually try and show them where or how important data is and how it actually drives business today and use that to motivate them. One of the things I found as a good motivation for it is the fact of showing how much people earn in that sector and getting somebody in who actually does that sector and showing them what the wages is. Suddenly their interest level goes up and that normally spurs them on. But yeah, as to meet the outcomes would be definitely looking at big data or something that we're already using and then trying to feed that to hit the criteria there for that specific one. Just on the cyber, we did do a course bespoke for ourselves using the Open College Network, and we wrote our cyber program, which is what we use at the moment for our level 3s. But within it, we had to do a level 1 and a level 2 as well. So probably repurposing some of that for the outcome 2s. And then a lot of what we do is around programming anyway. So for learning outcome, probably got them backwards, but for the programming one, we do a lot of programming anyway. So we've got a lot of resources that we can push towards already aimed at level 2 that we can use as well for that.
Yeah, Richard, I'm going to come back to you actually. But any other data, because that reminded me any other data examples? I'm not going to hog the discussion.
I had one provider who used consumer behavior data for Amazon. And they found, like, they showed a documentary to students before they, just to set the scene, and they said it worked really well because it just showed the importance of data analysis and how it could lead to something as big as Amazon. So yeah, that was an idea.
We used so Google has obviously Google Analytics, and they've got the Google demo store. So in DPDD last year, see if the digital business context, we were actually essentially following the money. So where the data was for, which web pages on the demo store had the biggest turnover, so with regards to completion of goals and how much, because the Google Analytics actually shows you how much revenue is being made from the visits and whatnot, and then using that along with Google Trends and Keyword Planner to sort of analyze data on topics which if there was a business context we should focus on, which had the best return on spend and whatnot, and return on investment with time, which is data analytics.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking there that all the examples that we've had so far have been linked into business and efficiency, and that's the whole sort of, like, that triangle Venn diagram with employers, with different elements. And when I was at Hales Owen, I think it was Manchester College, I think, that were telling us about they were in the middle of transition. They were not delivering a transition program, but they thought this would do well for it, and they built on just they got their day out to Alton Towers, and Richard, you're nodding. Do you remember that example? And it was around efficiency, wasn't it, with slides?
Yeah, I remember them mentioning it. I can't remember the whole specifics, but I do remember them mentioning it. Yes.
Yeah. And that was to them to get the hand back and say, well, look, sort of, you've got, people are buying these fast tickets, but you don't need it there, and you do need it there. And so that again was partly around business efficiencies, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm just going.
And I think there was some things to do with the rides and the information for the rides, certain rides as well, the best times for them as well, things of that nature.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring Louise in, if I can, Louise, because I know you're shooting off soon.
Yeah, so we've used Virtualytics. It's sort of an AI VR type product, and they wear headsets and they can actually visualize the data, because quite often with big data, it's really hard for them to really understand it without seeing it. So it allows them to sort of see the data in terms of kind of numbers of people and things like that. So it's quite interesting. And we got the software and the headsets through an SDF project.
That's really helpful, actually. So that was going to be one of my questions. How on earth do you afford that? And and then thanks, Louise. I'm just going to pull in Sunita. I don't know if you've got microphone or not, but you've given us some examples there. So you've given some examples of planning there, which is embedded within. Yeah, let's have a look. That's PO2, no microphone. Okay, yeah, but you moved straight onto the wireframe one, which is good. So if we were looking at cyber then, so we're PO2, and this is Sunita's example there, I think, because it was around a bit around planning, but also around risk assessments with cyber attacks. All right, yeah, let's not forget using Kaggle. So we'll do a lift of all the chat and pull all this together at the end. Unless before I move on, Richard, do you want a quick word about Kaggle for data sets?
Yeah, It was very useful. We created an assignment, and the one of the problem was where did we get the data from? So just a little bit of searching, I came across Kaggle, which was useful for data sets for various things, various topics, and basically just gives you a spreadsheet of numbers, which then the students can use into Power BI or into Excel, of that nature. But one of the things we were teaching them was how to clean the data, basically how to filter it. So we were teaching them ways of how to basically get to the information that they needed whilst removing things that weren't. And there were certain steps within the Unit 21 OCR. There were certain steps that a data analysis would have to go through. So by getting the raw data from Kaggle, they were able to go through those steps and then produce something usable at the end of it. So it was just a website that had loads of data sets, facts and figures from various sectors, and I think some of it you pay for, some of it's free, but you can download them, and they normally come into either comma separated or a Excel spreadsheet, and then you can use that with Power BI to generate some displays.
Okay, now somebody said, I'm going to come back to outcome 2, but I think I've got in the chat that DPDD, now is that Dharmesh or Sunita that does the software for short? Yeah, TQ. So in terms of the outcome 3 then, producing digital solutions, have you got anything that you might repurpose to the, I mean, you've got in there programming principles, and I know that we've had examples of programming already, but examples of how you might teach that. And then there's a little bit on hardware, software there. What detail would you go into? And then that broader problem solving frameworks notice to develop the skills. And let you find outcome 3 for a moment, produce digital solutions. Just as an aside, in the project management methodology, in one of our conversations, Louise might remember this, there was, could we put in design thinking in that? Yeah, so let's have a look as well. Any examples of how you deliver that?
I'll cheer up if you like. I know that, like I've said previously on the Access to T course, we gave a business scenario which required them to actually think of a solution to complete it. It was for a coffee shop, I believe, and how a coffee shop could start selling, obviously, coffee before customers get to the shop, and how they would integrate payments, how would they do an ordering system. So we let them essentially give them free rein to try and develop a solution for that, whilst guiding them down the lines of what we want them to do with regards to not use what you see is what you get, build and create something that was using resources that we already had. So that's what we did for ours. And again, it was the students saw benefit with that with regards to feeling confident that when they did go on to the level 3 course that they had a certain amount of experience of doing this in the first place, and that seeing business scenarios put in front of them didn't shock them. So that was what we did.
James, I know that you're with us. Any teaching and learning resources that you might have that could be used to support delivery for NTO3? James, I think you're trying to teach in the background. So just if you pick, if you pick that up, that would be good.
For us, for ourselves, we, as I say, we haven't started the L2, but we do teach programming on level 2. One of the things we did for our L3 was there was a business project management, project development, and also the software for business. So 3 different units, unit 8, 9 and 14. And what we did is consolidated those into one large assignment where they were building a project whilst developing an application. And we had it for, I think it was a medical centre, something along that lines. What we did to teach that was teach them programming using C# and then using databases to support that as well. So they would have to design the database and then build the application that would utilize that database at level 3. Obviously, for a level 2, we would be looking at a much smaller project, but probably something in a similar vein, so they could obviously prepare for level 3, but cut it down a lot from what our expectations for what a level 3 would be using, but keeping that same sort of formula to meet those outcomes, because looking at the outcomes, the sort of things that are mentioned there would be what we do on level 3 anyway. So project life cycles, project methodologies, just going back through, looking at algorithms, coding logics, all of these things we would normally do at level 3 anyway. So really reusing some of these types of problems, forgetting passwords in our system, they would be expected to build a password and look at that as well. So try and use a lot from what we've got for level 3, but just tailor it down a lot for our level 2 students.
Yeah, what do people think about sort of coding languages? Given that Python is the nominated one, I noticed there, Richard, you said C#. What are others' views on languages?
Well, if I explain why C#, for our level 3, they also they do for our software strand, they do a lot of programming. So rather than jumping from different languages, which obviously is confusing, especially if you're learning, it was picking a language which was very versatile. So we use C# for, they would start off with something console, then something desktop. We could then take them into web development or back-end web development using ASP. And then they could also do games development using Unity with it as well. So basically joining up different areas, C# I could use the same language for all. And then it takes away having to learn different syntax every time we change discipline. So that's why we went C#, but we do Python for some subject areas as well. So we're open to that, but as I say, for our level 3, that's why we chose C#.
Okay. Any other thoughts on languages? Louise, just before you go, you got one minute.
Yeah, we're sticking with Python, to be honest, just because it is the language on the T level. So yeah, that's what we're teaching at level 2.
Louise, before you go, the DFE are wanting, if you want to be involved in a DFE project with the department direct, please can you let us know either in the chat or send a message to Abby afterwards. Yeah, have a think about it, and even if you go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I'd definitely be interested to know more.
Yeah, okay. So, right, Abby, Louise is going to get the DFE contact then. That's great. And this is for anybody else, but Louise, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware before you go. Thanks for your input, Louise.
Thank you.
And hopefully, we'll see you live in person at our next session.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Yeah, bye. So, Verity's trying to come in. We'll involve her in as soon as she connects there. So. All right, so we've got lots from James, thank you. Yeah, just give people time to absorb and read what James has said there. Holistic approach, yeah. So James, I'm thinking holistic approach for the whole of the 3 NTOs there. Configure virtual machines, make the database, web server, IT support desk, yeah. Yeah, again, somebody that calls on OCR units for teaching and learning. Then we've got something there. Thank you, James, on languages, databases. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Hopefully people have picked that up. You will get access to all this. Yeah, Farhad's nodding there. It will go on either your FAQs or your space, your AOC space as well, once we get the notes up there and the FAQs up there. Verity's still scrolling in. So I'm going to draw on that approach there that James has just mentioned for, and we had Donna in our group, didn't we, that put it in the chat, around holistic delivery of the 3 NTOs through a project. Don't know how many people use projects as a vehicle for teaching and learning. Thoughts around that one? Or whether you like to have discrete, or thoughts about project approaches?
I'd obviously I'd have a look at it, but I'd like to know more of how the guided learning hours would be covered, and basically how to avoid the sort of fact of them having to do basically a lot of workshops, trying to avoid that sort of teaching by doing a project. So I'd like to know more about how the input and delivery is done under that. Is it just like still delivery, but just having one large assignment? So just some information on that.
Yeah. So maybe that could feed into our FAQs, I think, you know, sort of wanting to know more about project approaches, and because it can seem a bit overwhelming if you're using a project to deliver the whole of the 3 NTOs there. So I'm just going to throw in the parts there around. We did have formative assessment as part of our teaching and learning at the beginning. So to what extent, and I suppose this is maybe all the time, but to what extent do you explicitly use formative assessment with your level 2 programs at the moment, your 1-year students that you might want to move over? Somebody mentioned exams. Yeah, doing tests and exams as they go along.
That was Louise. We discussed we discussed it a little bit in our breakout session, and then she said they will be embedding exams, because the level 2 that they're doing delivering at the moment has only got assignment base and case studies. But to prepare them for the T-level exams, and the students that they want them to be academically be able to sit an exam and have them study skills. So they will be embedding some in-house designed exams towards the end of the year, just to prepare them and give them the opportunity just to rehearse the T-level exams.
Yeah, and anybody else coming in with formative assessments? So interestingly, Louise was saying embedding Farhat, so sort of like little sort of mini exams, and I suppose it's that whole, they have to revise, they've got time conditions, you're on your own, you can't talk to anybody, so that, and then using that as formative assessment, but also practice for the T-level experience. Dharmesh, I know you've been in the chat, Sunita as well. Anybody else want to come in there?
I was just going to say we do the OCR level 2, the latest one, which already has exams in it. So we would probably like to keep some of that model going forward, as well as you say, preparing them for our T-levels. Specifically because of the fact that many times most of our levels 2 students need to have that exposure to exams. So we do one already, with varying success, but we'd probably try and keep that model as well going forward.
Do you do any? I'm back on the projects now. Oh, right, Sunita's come in. Yeah, exams on follow the same pattern. So I was going to do you do any sort of like mini sort of like project tasks? You know, like the ESP is broken down into tasks and the occupational specialism broken down into tasks. So I'm just wondering to what extent you might use that approach for your formative assessment activities. Really, I suppose that's the ongoing diagnostics, isn't it, as well as supporting teaching and learning. So just thinking there. So I know for a BTEC at the moment, you've got your exam stroke knowledge test stroke assignment, but to what extent you feel that you might be able to carry that over? Dharmesh, James, Sunita, I know that will take a while to come through, but do put something in the chat before we move on.
Can I just add in there, if you are looking, I know Richard, you mentioned before, if you want to have a look, there are some examples of projects so that other providers have designed on our Padlet. So if you want to go and just have a quick look, and that if nothing else, I'll give you that reassurance that you're on the right track. So please do go on our Padlet and have a look under the digital route.
Yeah, and hopefully everybody's used to, that's going to nod in a minute, hopefully everybody's used to getting onto the Padlet. Yeah. Because when we first started it, it was a bit sort of, yeah, now it's everybody's, sort of in their mind automatic, hopefully. Yeah, that's great.
And we've redesigned it as well, so it's a lot easier to navigate as well. So hopefully that should help.
Okay, so, oh, Sunita, sorry, I need to familiarise T levels. See the difference between BTEC and T levels. Yeah, so Sunita, what I ought to get somebody else to do this actually, but T levels, the main difference is that you've got T levels sort of like summative assessments, whether that's exams or time delineated tasks. Okay, we'll forgive you then, Sunita, if you're at the UTLs on the 8th of December. So you'll see there all the different the different assessment tasks. So mostly summative assessment there, and the grading is different, whereas tendency to BTECs to be unitized and sort of an assessment as you go along. Okay, forgiven. Right, let's have a look at then, Abby, I am alerting you to the breadth and depth, please, slide, just so that we can touch on that. Thank you. Right, so you will see at the end of whether you're online or whether you've got print-offs or whether you're on split screens or even in the background, right at the end of the sets of NTOs, you will see a table that is illustrative examples, breadth and depth. Okay. Really, these are examples. You don't need to teach them, but supposing you have those students who you want to really sort of embed and hone certain skills and give them extras to reinforce knowledge, how would you do that? And then you've got, on the other hand, those students that for whatever reason have missed getting onto their T level, and they're nudging up that level 2 and into some areas a level 3, okay, as they move throughout. So our breadth is sort of like around extension and depth around moving up and needing extra challenge. So the reason why we've got those boxes there at the end are to provide that stretch and challenge opportunities. So it's merely examples for you and to flag that that there is that flexibility there. So what we've said for breadth is by applying knowledge and understanding to different contexts, and to develop depth by analysing information to make conclusions and judgments. You will also see right at the back of the NTOs is the difference between level 2, level 3. Now that's your everyday existence, you know, between your level 2 and level 3 learners. But that's just there as a reminder to put that into context. So I'm just going to come out of that slide. Thanks, Abby. Just to have just a couple of minutes on to what extent that you have to flex your level 2 at the moment, provision in those ways, you know, you're teaching, and to what extent that you might use the breadth and depth here. And they're broken down into each performance outcome to give you that flexibility of whether you potentially want to teach 1 or 2 together, or teach them independently, or teach them as one. Or is that built in your current level 2 teaching, pushing youngsters, your young learners onto young adults onto level 3?
To be honest, for myself, don't do a lot of level 2 myself anymore, but I do obviously work closely with colleagues. Generally speaking, I think since we've moved to the OCR qualification, the latest one with the exams, they have found things a little bit more difficult naturally within the course. The exams more so. Because obviously normally students who end up on our level 2 program will have not done as well in exam situations, so they naturally find that the difficulty at the moment. What I have done this year, I think somebody else has mentioned something similar, is we've done a CTF. So we're doing some cybersecurity challenges and logic challenges, which are open to the whole IT department. So we have done that for students who we find found the main course probably easier than others, and we've done that to stretch and challenge some of our learners this year. But on our level 2, I think the exams naturally have been their difficulty, so we've been preparing them in that way. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to James has asked a question, might have been lost in the 5% dealing with learners. Bless. Thank you for joining us anyway. But the T-level transition document, the entire talk content, so that's the expectation, James. So yes, but there's a but that's the expectations. That's the content that you must deliver. You can supplement that. You can supplement that so that it's no more than half of the GLH for the rest of the TLTP. Now, so I don't know what your college philosophy is. You know, sort of some colleges will say you've only got this much time for transition. Those that see that the learners have a need to use more than that, 120, 150. So you must cover that as a minimum. Yeah. Just those 3 with knowledge and skills inside. But level 3 T level is quite bulky. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 2 years. T level 2 years, yeah. And Sunita, you'll find that out when you go on Thursday. Yeah, to your understanding T levels. Right, pause there. I'm going to move on to next steps. So my first next steps, while Abby finds that, is the DFE are seriously wanting people to get involved in a project around teaching and learning and looking at supporting providers. Now we've got Louise who said yes, that she would like to be contacted, so she wants to hear more about that particular project involvement. So please do let us know in the chat or privately to Abby later if you're willing to be involved. I'm hoping you are willing, and then we can kick off something from providers. But this is what we're doing next in terms of the transition focus groups. So we have got our second session, which is face-to-face, and it's regionally based. Okay, so face-to-face, January, February, regionally based because obviously maximising numbers, and that will give a chance to further explore NTOs. So obviously we've got all the North, Central, South up there, so you can find yourself and which is easier for you to, where you think your college might be based. Also, it gives you the flexibility there to go to whichever, even though that might not be location, even though that might not be where your college might see itself. Okay, so we've got those 3 sessions that are face-to-face, full day in those locations, and further exploration of the NTOs. Yeah, so, and you've got the QR code as well there for to get further details. So do make a note of all those, please. But Farhat, I'm looking to you. This will go on the Padlet anyway, won't they? This set of slides, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it will be on the Padlet. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So out of that, please do make a note of the face-to-face, where to travel, but also involvement in the DFE project, and we can make sure that that happens for you. Next slide on next steps. So that's your number 2. Next steps for TFG3. So we've got in June then again. So this is, we've placed a huge emphasis today on the holistic delivery. You've said it yourselves, all the practice is coming through about how TLTP and the level 2 provision isn't seen in isolation. And you've even seen, I've even seen scope creep into other areas, experience of the workplace, business, etc. So this one will focus on contextualization. So holistic delivery right across the 6 components, including contextualization of English, Maths and Digital. And remember earlier I said, you know, it's not your responsibility to teach to explicitly to teach to for those qualifications, unless that is on your timetable, but to support learners and to support their learning. From today, we will draw out the frequently asked questions to go on the Padlet. And there are some already there. And we have up there guidance resources as well. And I don't know if AOC colleagues have got anything that you want to mention about those wealth of resources. There were at least 20 up there. I mean, sort of designated resources. I'm sure there are more now.
Yeah, they are. What I'll do, I'll just post the link in the chat so it's easy for everyone to access, and you should be able to find everything there.
Okay, and then I think we've got, so here's our challenge then, our next slide, Abby. You'll get used to these if you haven't been with us before, but in terms of personal action planning, I'm going to challenge you to put in the chat now, who's the first person that you're going to speak to within your organisation after this event in terms of where next? Okay. Hopefully that will go in the chat. So first person, get something in the chat. Waiting for those to come through. Followed very swiftly by first document. And it might be, thanks Dave, got you. First document, it might be to go onto the Padlet. It might be, want to remind myself about the framework for delivery. It might be the next message from Abby's events. Okay. And then first document, first action. So first person that you're going to speak to, first document that you need to read. Doesn't have to be a huge tome. Yeah, Richard got that. Yeah, quality nominee. Yeah, Sunita, that will follow through from that first one there about that we worked on. See now, and as you go through those, this is because the AOC team will now, James, create a plan. You know, they'll be working on planning for you. This is why we ask these questions. Yeah, they'll be working on planning with you. Yeah, Farhat's nodding there. So it's not something we ask just sort of to be up in the air. It's because it gives us real actions as well. So first person, first document, and then your first action. Moving into then our last slide. So hopefully the poll function works, Abby, and yeah. It's anonymous, by the way, but we'd like you just to give us a quick snapshot on the discussions today. And I know we had to reshape what we did at half time. And if there's anything else, any other questions that you think of afterwards, please do talk to your AOC contact, or you can send in any questions to Abby. Farhat, everybody has access to you or one of your colleagues, don't they?
Absolutely, yes. I was just going to say, if there are any questions, anything we can support you with, or your teams, just feel free to email us, and yeah, we'll put you in the right direction, or we'll find some support for you. So don't worry about it. I know you're all at the start of your planning, so we're here to support you. Shall I put my email address in the chat? So if anyone wants to contact, and if they can't find their advisor, feel free to email myself, and then I can point you in the right direction.
That's great, Farhat. So just to say, these sessions are always a mixed bag, remote, but thank you so much for staying through and for all your contributions, either on the chat or or on screen. Yeah, big thank you, and hopefully we'll see you face to face in some capacity, yeah, in January, February.